I'm a pretty big Dragon Quest fan, having played all the essential games in the series. The Pokemon one, the Wiimote swinging game, and the good one. Rocket Slime is a DS game where you play as a slime, the absolute lowest creature in the extended Toriyama versus food chain. You have no limbs, no higher thinking, and no legal rights. Like the ducks at the park or unattended bicycles, it's perfectly legal to steal slimes, and that's exactly what happens at the start of the game. Your entire slime dukedom is depopulated by a gang of monsters that wear fake platypus tails. Except the ones that are actually platypi, I assume those are real tails. Anyway, your friends get carried off and locked in chests. To save them, you'll have to rely on your only real way to fight or interact with the environment at all.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills.
Flicking yourself like a rubber band. And you've also got a tank. At its heart, Rocket Slime is a game about squads of JRPG enemies engaging each other in armored warfare. The game is split into two segments, exploring differently themed zones on foot, and battling your castle-sized tank against other castle-sized tanks. While exploring zones, you'll be solving rubber band snapping-based puzzles, engaging in rubber band snapping-based combat, and stacking junk rescued slimes and enemies on top of yourself to deposit them onto train cars that will wheel it all the way to your off-screen hammer space storage void. Each zone has a boss, but they're piss easy and simple, like the rest of the exploration gameplay. Pretty much everything here feeds into the somewhat more challenging armored combat half of the game, which is where all the cool stuff happens. In Rocket Slime, tank combat can only be performed by two consenting parties. Willing opponents will construct torch-decorated brick podiums, sit in front of their tank, and wait for a dueling partner. Most tank fights are optional, but reward you with one of your kidnapped slime friends. Other times, there's unavoidable battles that block progress. To initiate the diesel sports, you blow into a flute that summons your... The controls for the tank battles aren't any different from exploration. You're still just controlling your slime. Wet towel cracking around, collecting garbage from the garbage dispensers, and dumping garbage into the garbage receptacles. But instead of train cars, it's cannons now. The general breakdown is that there's two tanks, yours and the enemy's. As you'd expect, the tanks shoot, and when they do, projectiles will either fly straight or at an arc, depending on which of the two cannons you fired them from. Both trajectories act as separate lanes. Generally, when opposing objects bump into each other, they knock each other out of the air, rendering them impotent. Once enough junk hits either tank, they'll run out of health, half blow up, and their engine will become vulnerable. To fully destroy a tank, it must be boarded, and its health-shaped engine has to be struck. Once this happens, the contents of the losing vehicle get vomited out for funsies, and the fight is over. Any inanimate object you can get off the ground is potential ammo. Everything's got varying amounts of damage they'll do when they make contact with a tank, varying speeds they'll fly at, and some junk takes more than one hit before they're knocked out of the air. There's also a heap of unique special ammo traits, stuff like the ghost bombs that pass through other projectiles, holy water that destroys the ghost bombs. There's herbs that heal your tank when shot out of a cannon, and a whole host of countermeasure type items that focus on clearing junk out of the sky, like shields, boomerangs that home in on enemy projectiles, and screen-clearing chili peppers. Not everything's meant to be shot out of a cannon, though. You're able to employ utility items like a cloak, bear traps, a night puppet, many night puppets, machine guns that can fire separately loaded bullets through side ports in your tank to deliver a barrage of unavoidable chip damage. And then there's also the lightning rods, which can be delivered to your enemy by slime or cannon. The rods don't do any damage when they touch a tank. Instead, they travel inside harmlessly. Well, harmlessly at first, give it a few seconds. Your ammunition stockpile isn't the only thing you bring into combat. War is a team sport, and each tank is crewed by a squad of 4 monsters. Your U takes up one of your 4 slots, but for the other 3, you can pick some of the slimes you rescue to help out, or alternatively, any enemy that you've collected 30 of in the field can be made to tag along with you. Each potential ally has 1 or usually 2 jobs they'll be able to do. Mostly, you're either sending your troops over to the enemy base to be obnoxious, or load ammo into cannons. But there's also some special tasks specific monsters and slimes can carry out. One slime is able to periodically heal your hull by singing. There's a dragon turtle that can fire itself as a special ammo type. And probably the most outlandish one is the golem, which isn't really a crewmate, it's more of a mech suit you can pilot. The game throws a lot of varied enemy setups at you, different crews that'll antagonize you in different ways, and sometimes even their tanks themselves have built-in tricks. The Rabbit Unicorn one has a secret horn missile, the trees drop healing leaves, and a few tank types have axes they'll swing to swipe projectiles out of the air. With all the tools you're given, there's a lot of setups you can bring into encounters. Boarding the opposing tank yourself to sabotage and disrupt the enemy crew. Sending your minions to be disruptive while you man the guns. Or, if you want to never get hit, bring a bunch of chili peppers, bullets, and machine guns. There is no counter to this.
Fire!
The only drawback to the machine gun pepper strat, or any other strat you could dream up, is that you'll have to spend time gathering the materials required to craft all the cool junk you want to use, and before that, you'll need to rescue the specific slimes who have the blueprints for things you want to craft. Gathering stuff isn't that much of a chore, I guess. It's kind of therapeutic in a mind-numbing sort of way. It's the game's main way to have a progression system, I guess. Instead of grinding turn-based RPG battles over and over to level a character, you're collecting junk and enemies to level up your tank's health, build a custom ammo stack, and compile a team of crewmates. It's worth mentioning Rocket Slime is actually the sequel to an unlocalized Game Boy Advance slime game that's pretty much just the exploration part of Rocket Slime without the tank fights. There is also a unlocalized 3DS sequel. It's pretty good. And it also has an English fan translation. I do not agree with replacing the castle tanks with giant boats, though. They're nice boats, but it's just not the same as castle tanks.